Hello and welcome to 3 Minute Game Pass. I'm Nathan. And guess what, everybody? Arcane weapons are fixed! Yay! It's finally time for an Arcane bleed build. For those who don't know, most Arcane weapons were busted when the game launched. Stuff like no scaling, bad damage, all sorts of other crap. But in the latest patch, 1.03, they are all fixed. So my dream of making an Arcane Dragon Dovahkiin Prophet of Blood can finally come true. Yes, that's a very specific dream. Just don't ask questions. So strap yourselves in and prepare to give yourself into the Arcane arts, because it's time to play Arcane 4-Sword Dragon Adventure with an absurdly powerful build. It's time to get our Prophet godly in under an hour-ish. But no farming this time. Okay, so we got a lot to cover, so I'm not going to go into a ton of details about the things you need to do in the intro. You're going to pick Seed as your starting gift, do all the intro stuff. What you're going to need to do for sure is kill the Mama Dragon for our 98k souls, though. With Prophet as your starter, you're going to need to pick up the Morning Star from down here. It's the only weapon that you can use that has bleed at the moment. You're going to have to two-hand it. Additionally, you're going to need to pick up the Chicken Foot in the south corner of the beach before going to the Dragon. To get there, you follow the usual route, enter the ruins at the lake, warp to the mine, run out of the mine, head west, take the north detour for the Somber Stone 5, keep following the path until you eventually reach the dragon. Something you might want to consider before killing the dragon is getting Radagon Soreseal from the fort. Because you're such a pathetic weakling, you can't one-hand the Morning Star, but with the Soreseal you can, and you won't have any runes to lose once you get in there and, die to the rats. I'll go in more detail to get in a second, just a thought, and then you're going to do the usual, kill the dragon. Now this one you need to kill more than the other builds because we also are going to need those hearts that the dragon drops, because this is a dragon spell build as well as a 4 swords bleed build. The stats you absolutely are going to need for sure are the following: 12 strength, 21 dex, 19 arcane, and 17 faith. However, you only need to push dex to 16, as we're basically going to use Radagon Soreseal, which gives 5 to vigor, endurance, strength, and dex for this build, which, because it helps basically every stat that we want. That also means you don't need to put any points in strength based off the Prophet starting kit. If you have leftover, I'd suggest getting vigor to 20, endurance to at least 10, possibly 15, and mind to 15, then you're just going to pump Arcane. I'll get into the actual breakdown later, but for now, let's get slicing and get our stuff. Okay, as I said before, you should probably pick up the Soreseal from this fort. Remember to spend all your runes before heading in. It's fairly easy to get. You run on in, head up the ladder, grab the half of the disc here. We are going to use it very shortly. Hop down, go down the hole with the ladder, turn around, avoid the big chonker rat, down the hole, grab the amulet, bing bang bong, now you're dead to rats. We're going to wear this basically the entire game, so pop it on and try to not think about all the extra damage you are now taking. The other talisman we're going to use early in the game is the green turtle talismans, as this build eats stamina for breakfast. It's easy enough to get. You just head here, use a Stonesword key, and pop on down. And FYI, we're going to need at least 3 Stonesword keys for this build to work. There's one here on the Bridge of Sacrifice and one here next to the shack, but most importantly, there's a merchant here in the southern peninsula that sells some for 2k runes each, so you might need to journey down there and buy a couple from him before continuing. Alright, so we have our 2 talismans, so we're set there for now. Let's get our weapon. First off, we're going to need a bleed weapon, but what is better than one blade? That's right, 2 blades. This is a Twinblade dragon magic build, after all. How is that not the coolest thing ever? To get the Twinblade, you're going to need to head back down to the Dragon Ruins where you vape nationed yourself into Florida, and amongst the ruins you'll find a fully enclosed area. Hop the fence and down the stairs and you'll find our weapon, the Twinblade. Now why did I pick a Twinblade for this other than any other weapon, Verduvia, whatever? Well, because when they're two-handed, they attack absurdly fast, which inflicts a ton of bleed extremely quickly. But we need to put bleed on it first, and so we gotta make a little detour to pick that up. Head to the fort here and fight your way to the top. At the top you'll find our nemesis, Bloody Slash Man, a Mega Man reject. Yes, that is now his name. I'm going to go edit the Fextra Life wiki once they unban me, and then it will be canonized. Once you kill him, you get Bloody Slash Ash of War. Before you go, be sure to climb the tower and get the other half of the Beyblade disc or whatever it's called. You are going to need it for the next bit. You're going to equip Bloody Slash to your Twinblade and make sure you select the bleed mode, and watch that number climb into space as you upgrade this bad boy and put more points into Arcane. The bleed on this weapon is going to become absurd. Two-hand this and you will be golden, but what's better than one Twinblade? 2 Twinblades! Besides, I promised you a fixed Arcane weapon, so let's get a better one. ELEONORA'S Poleblade. Now to get ELEONORA'S Poleblade, you have to do Bloody Finger Hunt Yura's quest, which is going to take us across the world and up into the Atlas Plateau and whatnot, but it's actually not that difficult of a quest and only really has 3 steps. First, you're going to head to the canyon here to spawn the invader with the Reduvia knife. After a minute, our boy Yura will show up to help. Work with him and make sure you kill the invader. If you die, just go try it again until you kill him. After that, we're going to head up into Lunaria of the Lakes via the bridge. You'll need to pick up the Academy key here so you can get into Hogwarts. Then you pop in via this grace. Once in here, you'll head north, but you actually don't use the seal to warp. You just run past it, and on the ground, you will find a red summon sign to help Yura. Note, if this doesn't show up, then you'll need to advance the story more by killing Godric. It did show up for me before I killed Godric, but I've heard it's a little finicky. Once you invade Yara's world, you can help him defend himself against the invader. If you fail, it's okay, just re-invade and try again. After Yura will be on the bridge, talk to him until you exhaust all of his dialogue for him to move. I screwed up the first time and only talked to him once, and he didn't move, and I had to come all the way back. It sucked. Once you do that, we're going to head up to the Atlas Plateau. Now you do use the key on the North Seal to warp up, and then hustle north and east until you reach the lift. Once up here, we're going to head to this church on the map. Now, if you get here and Yura isn't here, then you screwed up and you need to go talk to him again on the bridge. If he is here, then he's, well, dead. Very sad, I know, but at least we get his big katana. You'll then be invaded by Elenora and her famous Poleblade. Elenora isn't exactly easy. She uses dragon spells and of course has her famous sword, but I found two things that helped me kill her. If you stand behind a pillar, then her dragon spells often can't hit you with their AoE spread, and also using extreme aggression tends to knock her off balance. She doesn't have a ton of poise. So just play cautiously, try and inflict as much bleed as possible, and once you beat her, you will get her Poleblade. From here, it's just a hop and a skip to the giant blacksmith here on the map, where you can upgrade that Poleblade to +5, which will cost you a bunch of souls, so you're gonna have to do that on your own. This Poleblade is not only awesome looking, but it has fantastic weapon art, which is basically this flourish dance of death move that just wrecks everything. I also believe that once you do the leap part of the animation, you cannot be interrupted, which is also fantastic as well. The only downside is against smaller, faster enemies, it sometimes warps you to a completely different zip code than the enemy, so preference using it on slower or badder beasties or large clusters where you can easily get all the hits off. So yeah, after I spent roughly an hour on my game comparing damage, attack animations, bleed buildup, yada 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 between the Poleblade and the Twinblade, I couldn't really come to a conclusion. The Poleblade does additional fire damage, which is awesome, but the Twinblade does way more bleed damage. Then I remembered something. Elden Ring is actually just Dark Souls 2 Part 2. And what's better than 2 blades? 4 blades. Yeah, we're gonna actually power stance these. It is awesome. I will get more into that when we talk about how to play this build, but for now, let's go get our spells. So the finger seal we want is the Dragon Communion Seal, which is by far the best finger seal for us, as it not only boosts dragon spells, but also scales extremely well with Arcane. To get it, we'll need to head back to the very first grace you found and to that fog gate that was on the right that required 2 Stonesword keys to enter. Now you get to play the saw traps, but it's different than how you get the Erd tree if you saw that in my other video. You'll need to hustle down the very unsafe thin lane at the bottom. The best way to do this is to jump down while the evil car of death is on its way up at the upper level, and then just hoof it as fast as humanly possible across the bridge. You're then just going to continue along the path as I am doing here, and once you get to the very top, there will be a knight here who is going to murder you. Unfortunately, he is also carrying the seal we want. You can technically fight him legitimately, but that's stupid. Let's cheese him. Just lure him outside and wait for the Car of Doom to approach. Then simply roll back into safety and watch as he becomes a hit and run victim. Don't drink and drive, kids. Grab the seal and then feel free to die or do whatever. We are now good to go. This also takes Somber Stones to upgrade, so I'd pump it as well using the 1 through 4 that the smith sells. Okay, now that we've got it, what spells do we get? To get spells, we're going to have to go into the remnants of a broken dragon religion in Florida here on the map. At the church, there will be 1 remaining priest guarding the place that you will have to kill, a grace, as well as an altar which contains the spells that we want. Since you have a bunch of hearts from killing Mama Dragon, you'll have a lot of options, but my suggestion is to get the 3 non-fire breath spells. The ice one, the magic one, and the rot. I'll explain why I don't get the fire one right now. Okay, so the thing about dragon spells is while they do a ton of huge AoE damage, and if you hold cast, they will keep just spamming that damage, it takes about an entire season of Game of Thrones for them to wind up before they actually attack. Now for the 3 dragon spells I recommended, the game doesn't take the FP cost until the spell is actually cast, so if you're interrupted during the wind up, you're still fine. I mean, you get interrupted, but you don't lose the FP. But for whatever reason, Dragon Breath takes the mana during the wind up, so if you are hit during the wind up, you lose the FP and just get nothing. I'm assuming this is a bug, but either way, it makes me not want to use it. Anyway, this is where the true versatility of this build shines, as you can now apply all sorts of damage via severed dragon heads. The Frost one, in my opinion, is by far the strongest, has the best range, applies the Frost debuff, which increases amp damage as well as a damage burst, and just seems to do the most damage overall. However, I really like the Rot one against bigger enemies, which includes the Star Scourge boss of all things, which gives them the Uber Poison and can basically kill them. There are way more dragon spells you're going to unlock as you kill more dragons, and some of them are better than these, but you can get to those as you progress through the game. You'll have plenty of hearts as you go forward. Now that we have some dragon spells, let's actually go get what I consider to be our best spell and our bread and butter spell, the Lightning Spear. To get this one, we'll need the book that tells us how to become Zeus. So head to here in Lunaria of the Lakes on the map, and you'll find a lonely golden knight on his way to his monthly book club. Murder him with extreme prejudice and steal his reading material, the tome that contains the power of the gods. And take that to either the incantation dude at the round table or the turtle pope. And by that I mean you will take this to the turtle pope. Take everything to the turtle pope. He is the best. Forget the guys at the round table. The spell we're going to buy is Lightning Spear, which might be the best incantation in terms of raw utility. It casts fairly fast, does an obscene amount of damage, especially with arcane scaling, and is actually pretty FP efficient, even though it's a bit expensive. I use this all the time. This is our ranged option. The last two spells we're going to grab is Flame Cleanse Me and Flame Grant Me Strength. Flame Cleanse Me is actually near the turtle pope in this camp, just lying on the ground. It's a situational spell, but it's also one of the only ways to cure Scarlet Rot early on in the game, as it cures both that and poison, so use it whenever you have to traverse somewhere nasty. Flame Grant Me Strength is found in Florida behind this fort. You simply shimmy around the left side, pop down, ignore the absolutely terrifying fire chariots, and pick it up. This one buffs both fire and physical damage for a short period, which our Poleblade does both, so it scales really well with us and is very strong. Alright, let's talk about where we take this prophet's stats. So aside from those base starting stats I listed earlier, what else do we need? Well, I highly suggest getting Vite to 20 base ASAP, like I said, as well as getting your endurance to around 15 base. With this, you can wear the Mausoleum Knight armor, which can be farmed here, which I think is some fantastic midway armor for mid-game. I ended up putting more in endurance later so I could wear Radagon's armor, but that's up to you. You'll also need a fair amount of mind, which I got to 20 because our spells are extremely mana hungry. We don't rely on them all the time, but I do want enough mana to either toss lightning bolts at bosses or spam frost breath against invaders. Other than that, you're literally just going to dump points into Arcane as much as possible, as everything we have scales with it. Seriously, it's that simple. Your weapons scale with it, your bleed scales with it, your spells scale with it. Arcane is the moneymaker here. Later on, I ended up putting some more into strength so I could use the Godskin Peeler Twinblade, but that was just a cosmetic thing. It only does slightly more damage. It probably wasn't really worth it, but I think it looks cool. And at some point, you definitely want to get Vigor to 40 because you will need it. And of course, 60 is the soft cap for Arcane, so it's what you want to hit as soon as possible, and then maybe start distributing points elsewhere. Alright, so we have 4 blades, a bunch of spells, and a heart of gold. Or probably pure draconian evil, really. Well, either way, how do we play this build? Well, you put the sigil and the Twinblade in your left hand and the polearm in the right. Basically, if an enemy is small or staggerable, you dual wield the Twinblades and just go ham on them. Something I'd like to point out is the jumping attack with 2 Twinblades is amazing. You basically just spin them around like an absolute madman, hitting like, I don't even know, 50 times, 100 times, something like that before you land. This is absurdly good against both shielded enemies, as it will break through, and also big beasties, as you'll hit a ton of times and apply just a boatload of bleed. However, power stancing Twinblades takes an obscene amount of stamina. So if you're against a big boss, you might want to switch to incantation and just 1 polearm. However, I do suggest two-handing the weapon when attacking, as its moveset is considerably better. For your incantations, Lightning Spear is your Doom Shotgun, your staple. You're going to be tossing this all the time to pick off enemies, lure others away, as well as snipe bosses when you enter the area for some starting damage, or use Frost Breath for that too. The dragon spells, on the other hand, are really effective against NPC invaders, as well as large groups of slower enemies. Additionally, when you enter some boss arenas, you might be able to spam a full Frost Breath on them, which will apply Frostbite, which means you're going to do amp damage the rest of the battle. Really strong stuff. However, because of their extreme mana cost and wind-up time, you'll need to use them both carefully and sparingly. And that's basically it. Bleed everything to death with your Quad Blade Prophetic Fury, and if it can't bleed, either bolt it or blast it with Dragon Breath. Alright, so we have 4 blades, we have the power of a dragon and the power of Zeus, and our arcane stats are through the roof. Where do we go from here? Well, first you can get some neat spells in the area you unlock after doing the Varus questline. Here you can find Swarm of Flies on a cave on the side, as well as get Blood Boon if you manage to kill the boss. Swarm of Flies is absolutely devastating against slower, larger enemies, as if they stand in it, it'll proc bleeding extremely fast. It's also good against NPC invaders in PvP, and Blood Boon is really good against groups of enemies, as it both burns and bleeds them on the ground, and you can actually move around while casting it, unlike most incantations. Aside from that, I did swap out the Twinblade with Godskin Peeler and put bleed on it, though the stats were only slightly better. I just thought it looked really cool. You can also technically put occult scaling on it, but you'll lose the bleed, which in all my testing was absolutely not worth it. Our offhand Twinblade is literally just there to stack bleed. Adding even 30 to 60 points of damage via occult is actually significantly decreases your damage output. I do not recommend it. Lastly, you should pick up the Talisman that boosts incantations from the scary mine you landed on Vape Nation, as well as Radagon's icons from Hogwarts as it increases cast time and makes casting dragon skills slightly less painful. And of course, there is a talisman you can get later in the game that every time you proc bleed, your damage significantly increases. You should absolutely be using this, but it's kind of out of scope of the 1 hour thing in this video. After that, I just wear heavy armor and enjoy blitzing through most of the game. Honestly, of all the builds I've made on this channel, I think this one might be my favorite. It's just so damn versatile and obscenely strong. Since you only have to pump Arcane to buff pretty much every offensive thing you have, you've got points to spread around for heavier armor, more FP, more HP, and that does help quite a bit. Now buff incantations from Soft You Coward. You buffed all the sorceries. I can literally feel my beard growing longer every time I cast an incantation. It takes so long for that stupid thing to fire off. But that is all I have for you today. Thank you so much for watching. I hope you enjoy this build. It is so fun. And especially if you get Eleanor's Poleblade early, man, you're just going to shred this game. Its art is so good. It's just really strong. And have yourself a fantastic time playing Elden Ring as well as a great day.